Skinwalker Ranch, also known as Sherman Ranch, is a property of approximately 512 acres. It's located southeast of Ballard, Utah, that is reputed to be the site of paranormal and UFO related activities. Its name is taken from the Skinwalker of Navajo legend concerning vengeful shamans. This property has had a few ownerships. From 1934 to 1994, Kenneth and Edith Myers. 1994 to 1996, Terry and Gwen Sherman. From 1996 to 2016, it was the well-known Robert Bigelow. Now, from 2016 to the present, it's Brandon Fugel via Adamantium Real Estate, LLC. I've been binge watching the Skinwalker Ranch series that's been on. I just finished the 3rd season. And I have to say, they definitely recorded some interesting stuff. So, this ranch has definitely had one heck of a paranormal reputation. The ranch is located in West Uintah County, bordering the Uintah and Ouray Indian Reservation. It was popularly dubbed the UFO Ranch due to its ostensible 50-year history of odd events said to have taken place there. According to Kelleher and Knapp, they saw or investigated evidence of close to 100 incidents that include vanishing and mutilated cattle, sightings of unidentified flying objects or orbs, large animals with piercing red eyes that they say were unscathed when struck by bullets, and invisible objects emitting destructive magnetic fields.
Kick him in the north! Kick him in the north! He doesn't have north! Do it! Do it! Wolfman's got nards! Come on! Come on!
Just a little humor for you guys. So the Ute Native Americans have long said that the bordering ranch is on the path of the Skinwalker, and for that reason have long been forbidden to go near the property. The Skinwalker is a malevolent, shape-shifting witch of the Navajo people, which the Ute people take very seriously. Before the Ute moved to the reservation, they were a fierce and warlike people who lived primarily in Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico. At one time, the Ute and the Navajo fought together against their common enemies. However, later when the Ute first acquired horses from the Spanish, they began to abduct Navajo people and sold them in New Mexico slave markets. Later, during the Civil War, some Ute bands joined with Kit Carson in a military campaign against the Navajo. This ended in the Navajo being expelled from their lands and forced to march to a reservation in Fort Sumner, New Mexico, called the Long Walk of the Navajo. Though the tribe was allowed to return to their homelands in the Four Corners area several years later, the Ute believed that the Navajo put a curse on the Ute tribe for the previous transgressions. Afterward, the Skinwalkers began to plague the Ute people. The Ute believed the Skinwalker presence in Uintah Basin extends back at least 15 generations. They don't believe that the Skinwalkers live on the ranch, but rather hide out in a place called Dark Canyon, which is located nearby. According to reports, Skinwalkers have been seen in the area by the Ute numerous times. The witches have been spied near the ranch, on the road to Fort Duchesne, and on various areas of the reservation. One account described them as looking like humans with dog heads, smoking cigarettes. That's an interesting picture. Another described them as large black hairy humanoid figures that were very fast. They are also described as having unusually large coal red eyes. Others have said that they have seen and taken pictures of very large tracks which skinwalkers are said to leave. Other unusual events began to occur in the Uintah Basin in the 1950s. Numerous reports of UFOs. This continued throughout the next several decades. Interestingly, these were not the first report of strange aircraft in the sky. The earliest mention dates from the late 1700s, when Spanish explorers in search of the Spanish Trail passed through the Uintah Basin and reported seeing craft in the sky over their campfires at night. There were hundreds of UFO reports, which included strange fireballs and aircraft that ranged in size from 20 to 30 feet across to as large as the size of a football field. They were described variously as round, oval, cigar-shaped, and triangular. Some were surrounded by a glowing green light, others emitted wavy red beams, and others appeared to shoot colored lights from their underbellies. By the 1970s, the Utah Highway Patrol was getting so many UFO calls that the troopers stopped filling out incident reports. At the same time, local ranchers also began to report bizarre cattle mutilations. A retired science teacher named Joseph, also called Junior, last name Hicks, from Roosevelt, Utah, investigated more than 400 UFO sightings in the Uintah Basin. He found that the UFO appearances often coincided with the cattle mutilations. Over the years, many of the eyewitnesses saw living beings in the windows or portholes of UFOs. Over the years, the Shermans, as well as their neighbors, had reported seeing a number of strange animals in the area. These included exotic, multicolored birds not native to the region, and tall, dark beasts that resembled a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. On one occasion, the Shermans saw a strange hyena-like creature attacking one of their horses, which they described as a low, to-the-ground, heavily muscled, weighing perhaps 200 pounds, with curly red hair and a bushy tail. As Mr. Sherman approached the animal, it vanished before his eyes. Afterward, they checked the horse and found numerous claw marks on its legs. A few months later, a neighbor reported seeing a similar beast running across their property. On The Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, they had a similar situation happen on one of their episodes. The Shermans, like their neighbors, had also saw strange lights and flying objects, including more than a dozen on one evening. On many of the occasions that they spied these UFOs, they also experienced the death or disappearance of 7 of their best cows. 4 disappeared without a trace, and 3 more were found dead and partially mutilated. One of the dead cows had a peculiar hole in the center of its left eyeball, but it was otherwise untouched. Another was found with a similar hole in its left eye, and a 6-inch hole, about an inch deep, had been carved out of its rectum. The last cow to be killed and mutilated had been seen alive by the Sherman's son just 5 minutes earlier. It had a 6-inch wide, 18-inch deep hole cored out of its rectum that extending into the body cavity. In all 3 cases, there was no trace of blood found. A chemical odor was apparent, and no evidence of predators' footprints or tire tracks. Of the cattle that disappeared, one seemed to have been magically lifted from the snow. Its hoofprints led into a field and then just simply stopped. The ground was littered with broken twigs and branches, and the tops of the trees appeared to have been cut off. There have been other strange events, like pastures lighting up unexplainably, and even hearing some disembodied voices speaking in an unfamiliar language that was heard from above. Crop circles of flattened grass were found on the ranch as well. Final straw for the Sherman family was one evening in May 1996, when Sherman was outside with 3 of his dogs. He noticed a blue orb darting around in the field near the ranch house. He urged his dogs to go after it. They chased and barked at the orb as they followed it into some thick brush. Sherman heard them make 3 terrible yelps, and when he called for them, they didn't respond. The next morning, when he went to look for the dogs, he found only 3 round, greasy lumps with what appeared to be scorched spot. The dogs were never seen again. Naturally, the Shermans planned to sell the property. However, before they got the chance, Robert Bigelow, a millionaire businessman, a believer in ufology, and founder of the National Institute for Discovery Science, offered to buy the property after he read about the events in the newspaper. Bigelow bought the ranch for $200,000, contingent on a non-disclosure agreement with the Shermans, who agreed not to talk further about the events on the ranch. He then began to establish a compound with high-tech sensing equipment, PhD-level field investigators, scientists, and a security detail which guarded the property 24 hours a day. The investigators were tasked with collecting evidence, interviewing witnesses, and searching for explanations. Its purpose was the research and advance the study of various fringe sciences and paranormal topics, including UFOs and cattle mutilation. With little apparent success, the National Institute of Discovery Science was disbanded in 2004. However, the organization was quickly replaced by the Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, also known as BAASS, which had more secretive and was apparently working towards having a government sponsor. In 2007, the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, AATIP, was a secret investigatory effort funded by the United States Defense Department to study unidentified flying objects, primarily on Skinwalker Ranch. Over several years, $22 million were spent on the program, which investigated reports of unidentified flying objects and was run by a military intelligence official, Luis Elizondo, from the Pentagon. The shadowy program was largely funded at the request of Harry Reid, the Nevada Democrat, who was the Senate Majority Leader at the time, and who has long had an interest in space phenomena. He was also a longtime friend of Robert Bigelow. This information, however, was not publicly known at the time until it was released by the New York Times in 2017. When the story broke, a Department of Defense official confirmed the government-funded program, and Senator Harry Reid admitted his complicity. Now, of course, the Department of Defense has never officially acknowledged the existence of the program, amongst many other programs, but interestingly, it does admit that the program was shut down in 2012. Anyway, so Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies lost its funding from the Department of Defense as the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program contract expired and was not renewed. So eventually, they sold the ranch, and it was rumored that it sold for $4.5 million in 2016. Wow, he really made some dough on that. To Adamantium Holdings. Bigelow's company then disbanded its security team, but it was quickly replaced by the new owners. That same year, the Hicken Ranch Road, a Uintah County public road, which bisected the Skinwalker Ranch, was illegally gated. Later that year, a representative ranch owner, Adamantium Real Estate, approached the county for a road vacation, claiming rampant trespassing issues led the owners to make the road private. The request was granted. There is no access to the property today, and gates block the entrance with large signs.
Frame. The next frame, the object is here. The cow is trying to get up on her feet.
The cow reacted.
Right.